Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Those of you who have followed my channel and blog know that I have talked extensively about the Book of Revelation. This book is responsible for more insane theories of the end times than probably any other book in human history. But if people would just use their common sense and read the book in its proper historical context, these crackpot theories would disappear. I recently saw a lecture on YouTube by the famous Bible scholar Bart Ehrman. Now, I know, the Christians are already screaming, "You Muslims can't use Bart Ehrman. He believes Jesus was crucified." But hold on, settle down. This is bigger than Bart Ehrman, and you certainly don't need a degree to come to the same conclusions that Ehrman did. Let's just see what he says.
Now, of course, futuristic people today telling prophecies come up with explanations about who this is representing. What is it like? Who's it representing? Well, what if we put it in the author's own historical context and try to understand it by taking the keys that are provided by the text itself? This whore is called Babylon. Babylon was a city. In the Old Testament, Babylon is the city that destroyed Israel and destroyed the temple. So the woman is called after the name, so she's a city. She is seated on this beast with 7 heads, and the 7 heads represent 7 hills. That's all most people need to figure out who the author living in the 1st century Roman Empire is talking about. What was the city built on 7 hills? Rome. The city built on 7 hills. It was called that frequently and still is. The enemy of God, Babylon, in this book, who has to be destroyed, is the city of Rome and the Roman Empire.
In a nutshell, Ehrman explains that the Book of Revelation was written for the author's own time and was primarily concerned with one enemy, the pagan Roman Empire. Once you understand the historical context, all of the so-called mysterious and bizarre imagery of Revelation makes perfect sense. There is no mystery in these symbols. Symbols such as the so-called, excuse the language, whore of Babylon, or the great prostitute, who is mentioned in Revelation 17.
And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations.
Christians have been struggling to identify this woman and what she represents for almost 2,000 years. But again, once you study the historical context, it is very easy to discover the truth. The woman represents the Roman Empire, and more specifically, the patron goddess of Rome, Dea Roma, who was depicted on coins minted during the reign of the Emperor Vespasian, sitting on the 7 hills of Rome. It is not a coincidence. Revelation even explains that the 7 heads of the beast represent 7 hills. This is not a mystery, people. There is no debate on this. Use your common sense. And it's not just Bart Ehrman or other skeptical non-Christians who say this. Christian sources say this as well. For example, the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Backgrounds Commentary explains, one of the 7 angels who pours out the bowl judgments now shows John a detailed vision of the judgment against the church's foe, personified as a prostitute. Although the great prostitute is not initially identified, her activity suggests she is a 1st century Babylon. The angelic interpretation in verse 18 states that she symbolizes the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. Jerusalem, Tyre, and Nineveh were cities in the Old Testament called prostitutes because of their godlessness. Historical Babylon was a city of many waters because the Euphrates River flowed through the city from north to south. Rome was similarly situated, with the Tiber River flowing through the city. It is not these literal waters, however, that the angel is talking about. They are interpreted in Revelation 17:15 as peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages, that is, her subjects throughout the empire. Such interpretive clues suggest that the imagery in this chapter is highly symbolic. Furthermore, the commentary states, she sits on the same beast that was revealed in 13:1. Rome was named after Roma, the daughter of the site's first settler, Evander. Roma came to personify the city and was worshipped as a goddess. The original imperial cult temple to Augustus, built in Pergamum in 29 BC, was jointly dedicated to Roma. Most of the 7 cities had active cults to Roma in them. A coin issued in Asia during the reign of Vespasian, AD 69-79, shows his image on the obverse and that of Dea Roma, seated on 7 hills on the reverse. In her left hand is a small sword, whose tip rests on her left knee, symbolizing Rome's military might. At the feet of the goddess is a representation of the river god Tiber, while beneath her is a she-wolf suckling Romulus and Remus. Since imperial coin engravers normally copied real statues and structures, it is likely that this portrait of Roma is a copy of an actual marble or bronze relief. Therefore, John sees an image probably known to him. Similarly, the NIV application commentary by Craig S. Keener states that Gentile rhetoric often imagined one's ancestors or homeland personified as a woman. Coins and other artwork typically depicted a city as a wealthy goddess enthroned beside a river. Thus, for example, a bronze coin from the rule of Domitian's father, who was Vespasian, included the goddess Roma, who personified Rome's power, sitting on 7 hills. Cf. Revelation 17:9. Official state worship included not only worship of the emperor, but also worship of the goddess Roma. Some scholars have proposed that Babylon here partly symbolizes Jerusalem. Others suggest it predicts a revived role for literal Babylon. But especially in view of its place on 7 hills, most commentators recognize that Rome is in view, whether or not they believe the text also looks beyond Rome. So, to reiterate, there is no mystery in the weird imagery of the book of Revelation. Contrary to crackpot theories by Christian extremists, the enemy of God in the book of Revelation is not the Vatican, not the European Union, not an Islamic caliphate, and the beast whose number is 666 is not the Pope, or Obama, obviously, or Bigfoot. Okay, fine. No Christian has actually ever said that, but you get my point. The enemy was the Roman Empire, and this enemy is long gone, so you don't have to worry about the 7-year tribulation period, or stinging locusts with crowns on their heads, or demon horsemen. However, that does not mean you shouldn't worry about Judgment Day. The book of Revelation does not have the answers to help you, but Islam does. Heed the warning, as recorded in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba. So when you see in Mecca that channels have already been dug, or tunnels built, and you see the buildings surpass the tops of the mountains, then know that the command of the hour has already cast its shadow over you. This prophecy has been fulfilled before our very eyes. Heed the call of Islam and repent to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وقل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل إن الباطل كان زهوقا